Hey there, TNA fam! We're back again here at the impzonepod podcast, here to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. Today, I want to talk about why it sucks a lot more for a match on pay-per-view, especially a big pay-per-view, to be bad than it does for a match to be on TV or what have you, on YouTube or what have you, on the app or whatever, on the network, so to speak, or whatever. So just a regular ass free match or whatever, a jobber match or a very short match, under 5 minutes or whatever, maybe under 10 minutes or whatever. So a bad match on a pay-per-view, especially a big pay-per-view, you think like WrestleMania, TNA, you might think Battle for Glory or whatnot, Slammiversary, like those big shows. They've tried to make two other big shows in the year, Rebellion and Genesis. The traditional ones were always, Genesis, Slammiversary and Bound for Glory. I think there was a couple other ones, like Lockdown used to be pretty big. But anyway, if there's a bad match, especially on those bigger shows, it's not to say that you can't have a lesser match. And what I mean by a lesser match is something like, let's say, 3.5 star match. I'm talking about real stinkers, not like, oh yeah, it's a decent middle of the road. I think 3 and 3.5 matches or whatever, 3.5 star matches are basically the middle road of, yeah, they're broadly fine, nothing too special, I suppose, but nothing really offensive, and maybe you say 3.5 stars. It's a little bit better than just an average match or whatever else it is, but it's still fairly middle of the road to the most part. But anything I would say maybe 2.5 stars or less style of matches are the matches that I'm talking about. Those sorts of matches that are absolutely basically devoid of anything really all that good. Just those matches that are absolute lemons, so to speak. And it sucks a lot more for those matches to be on a pay-per-view because, if you're watching a TV episode, oh, well, yeah, sure, if one random match doesn't deliver, even if it's meant to deliver, it's like, oh, well, that was on TV. I got to watch that for free, and plus, even that you might say this whole thing of saying, well, it was on a show of otherwise, good action, but when you're on a pay-per-view, it's a little bit different. Even if there is otherwise fairly good action on that pay-per-view, it's like, well, that one match really stands out as being a real stinker because it's not only was it a stinker, it was a stinker on a show that had a whole bunch of other fairly good to great stuff on it. So it really drags, the show down and people's opinion of the show. And that's the thing, when you're trying to build a big pay-per-view, especially big pay-per-views, what you're trying to do is raise the prestige of those shows to be at their highest level. Now, things happen and shit happens all the time. So, sometimes I think sometimes a little thing here, a little thing there that wasn't technically actually planned, but you make it work, can actually make the match a whole lot better if you are a really good pro and can really, realize, oh shit, well, I missed my clothesline that was meant to take this person down, but I'll just come back off the ropes and get it straight away, on the rebound or whatever, and it'll look a lot better or whatever, whatnot. Anything like that, you can do something in the spur of the moment and be like, okay, I'm not going to let that, minor botch to the timing change what I was going to do and what we were really going to go for next. I'm just going to move with the punches, keep going and, make this match even better, hopefully. And hopefully people won't really notice that was a little bit of a botch or whatever else it was, and it might make the match better. Who knows? If you could work with it and go with it. and your opponent does the same, and you go, oh shit, I was meant to take that clothesline, I guess, and he says, something about like, taking another one or go again or whatever or something like that, or you think to yourself, well, obviously he's going to have to do something, and I'll just turn around and like see what he's doing and where he's coming from. If you see him going for the same thing, the same clothesline effectively or whatever it is, then it's like, oh, well, yeah, cool, okay, I see what we're going for here type thing. You kind of need to read into what you were just doing, and obviously your opponent's going to do the same. They're going to go, oh, the spot was a clothesline, or the spot was this, or whatever it was, so I knock you down. Like, oh, okay, so he obviously wants to knock me down for this next spot, so all I've got to do is take the bump, like, two and two is four, bro, like obviously that's something that he wants to do. Like he's feeding for this comeback, or he's feeding for the big finish, and I've just got to bump around for him. So, using some of your logic and whatnot can help you, little wrestling logic can help you get through some of these moments, and whatnot. So yeah, but again, like when people, I don't know what it is about some matches or some wrestlers, because some wrestlers are very good wrestlers, and sometimes they've just, whether it's their dance partner, or because again, like a lot of the time you are only as good as what your dance partner is. You can't have a really great match if the person that you're in there, well, or even somebody who just doesn't want to do anything. All they want to do is the basic bare minimum stuff, whatever. Well, I can't do much with you if you just want to do, suplex, or whatever, and then finish, like, that's it. You only really want to be out there for 5 minutes, or whatever it is. That's not going to be a big time, match. It's going to be really short, and no one's going to barely remember it, except to remember that it was really bad, or whatever, so it depends on many factors. And again, like, if somebody's injured, or if somebody, even somebody gets injured in the match or something like that, or, just timing, man, just timing, even that, just timing things sometimes is just, not to say a chore, but it's sometimes like really hard to get like things exactly to where they like need to be sometimes. Like, some like drop kicks, they it's just like, well, he was actually like, not really hitting him with his drop kick, but the person, or the big boot, or whatever it was, or this clothesline, or whatever it was, or this punch, or whatever it was, but it's still one of those things. Well, that was the planned spot, and if we slightly missed it, or even missed it by a bit, it's like, oh, well, we've just got to keep going and whatnot. But yeah, like some nights, and sometimes I think it is just, it was Tuesday. I don't know, whatever it was just the fact that it was a Monday, and people had Monday-itis or whatever it was, or the fact that maybe, the match hadn't been, walked through, and people hadn't gone, okay, what are we doing, or whatever. Maybe somebody hadn't been paying attention, or maybe, like, somebody had taken some illicit substances. I know that doesn't happen as much nowadays, but again, like, hey, that can still happen where it's like somebody's taken something, or drunk a few too many beers, or whatever it was backstage, and they've just gone and friggin' forgot most of the match. Like, if you're a professional, a really good professional like Brett, you can guide somebody like that through the match pretty well, but still, it's it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy, and you've got to keep, well, not just keep it simple, but you've got to keep it, like, tight, and you can't let, you've got to be like, okay, they can only do 2 or 3 things at a time, because, like, I've just got to call 2 or 3 spots each time that we do something, and then we've got to get back to where we were, and then I've got to be able to call 2 or 3 spots or whatever, because otherwise, this is going to go off the rails pretty quickly. So I'll keep, you keep somebody on a short leash with that kind of, like, I know, again, it doesn't happen that much, but it still could happen. And it still has happened in the past. But again, that's why these matches, when they happen on pay-per-view or whatever, especially the bigger pay-per-views, hurt so badly, because it drags down the whole show, especially those shows that people, not just pay like $10 or whatever, pay whatever it is, that, fairly small margin of money just to watch it on live stream. Or, like the smaller pay-per-views are all often, like their ticket sales are a lot cheaper, as well, like the bigger pay-per-views. Like, so again, like if you're going to a B-level or C-level show or whatever it is, you're like, oh yeah, well the tickets won't be that much. Like, if you're going like a night of TNA tapings, the tickets aren't really that much. Like, they are a bit right now, but that's, due to a lot of different factors. But, yeah, you get that whole thing of saying, well, the big pay-per-views in the bigger arenas, that the bigger places and whatnot are just like more expensive because, well, again, that's the idea of the show. It's a bigger, better, badder, more exciting, like show of, and that's why you can't have, well, you should plan to say, hey, or try to save your best wrestlers and your best performers and your best matches for these types of shows, saying, hey, all right, instead of it being like, and I know like WrestleMania of late, like in the 2020s and whatnot, was getting like 7-8 hours long, and that was getting too long. And that's where you've kind of got to whittle it down and say, okay, we really just need the best 5, 6, 7 matches or whatever it is or whatnot for the show. And that's why, again, they said, well, instead of that, we'll just have it be 2 nights. And even then they said, oh, well, even then we still need to only have the best maybe 5 or 6 matches on each, on each night or whatever it is, because otherwise it starts becoming like, like there is too much stuff, to get through and to like, obviously you want to try to feature everybody, but you just can't. You cannot feature everybody on every show. It's just not the way that it goes, unfortunately. You cannot, like maybe if you have a battle royal or whatever, or something like that involves a whole lot of people, but like then you're saying, well, most of those people don't really matter that much, sort of thing, because it's like, well, we have nothing really for them, so to speak, so we can only give them an opportunity in a match that they're probably not going to win. But yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, again, it's just one of those things of saying, well, how do you give these guys, a little bit of a shine on a show when, like, you don't have really a whole lot planned for them, and you think people want to see them or whatever. And that's why I think like the quarter shot is actually kind of good, but like again, I think the whole Money in the Bank sort of style concept somewhat is a little bit, I don't know, convoluted. And I think it's like, or not convoluted, but it's a little bit like, what would you say, like, it's a little bit similar to WWE, obviously, in that regard, but it is what it is. And I almost feel like, again, like, instead of just having that at Bound for Glory, you could have it, like a month or 2 before that, and instead of it being for the quarter shot trophy, it's for some, like, Royal Rumble, like, basically the same thing, unfortunately, in many ways, but it'd be for basically a number 1 contendership to either Bound for Glory or Slammiversary. That's one way you could start saying, okay, this is for a number 1 contendership at one of the biggest shows of the year, or you could even have 2. I don't know, But like, or maybe you could say, okay, you get to pick a show, like you can pick Genesis, Bound for Glory, whatever, like the big 4 pay-per-views that they've got, Slammiversary, whatever. Rebellion, I guess, is the new one right now, but they might rebrand it or whatever. I don't know. We'll wait and see. But anyway, like, you can choose one of those shows. You get a title shot at one of those shows. But then again, it's like, well, instead of saying they choose it, like, you just have the match before it and whatever. Like, maybe, or something. Like, I think that's the sort of match that you kind of have to have for somebody that's sort of coming along and saying, okay, well, this person hasn't really gotten an opportunity. They've been here for a while, but now we can give them a bigger push by letting them win this, and then, okay, now we're going to give them 2 or 3 months worth of, like, really building them up in singles action and whatnot, or whatever it is, and then and then actually feuding with or sort of feuding with the champion, and then saying, okay, well, then they're going to go against the champion, at our next big show, and then we'll go from there, and you take those few months to go, okay, what did we get to see from this person? Are they worth our time investing into the future or whatever? That could be something for someone like Bear Bronson, or somebody like that, somebody that's fairly new. You go, okay, cool, we'll give you a chance, we'll let you win a big time match, like they just did. And that, like, he's only like a day or 2 in, but like, again, give him this opportunity, you see where he comes from there, you see how the fans react, you see how, like, his merchandise or whatever sells, you see how he works in the ring, and you start saying, okay, cool, now we're going to start pushing you as a upper mid-card guy or whatever, and then in a few months' time, you might win the international title or something, or the tag team titles with somebody or something like that, and then we'll go from there. We'll book you for a few months as the champion or whatever it is, and we'll keep seeing how you go, and if you're going well and really well, we might push you up to the next level, so that sort of thing. So, but yeah, like, if he or anyone was to have a bad performance, and they should know this too, is like, you're investing in yourself, like, like, so if you have a bad match, like, that is on you, even if you're one of the best, like AJ or whoever. It's like, if you're given an opponent that can't really do anything, like, pulling out a 3.5-star match is a pretty decent effort. But just going out there and being like, well, I haven't really got any ideas, and, well, that's it, right? So whoever's winning is whoever's winning, and especially if you've, like, it depends how many minutes you've got, but again, yeah, and it depends, like, how creative you want to get. Like, just get more creative, like, as well. Just be like, okay, what could we do? We've got to do something different, or we've got to make this match stand out, or in some way or some form. Like, so, but yeah. When sometimes shit happens, it is what it is. Shit happens, bro. Like, but yeah, like, if you're thinking about it, you're thinking about, like, all those things. It's like so many factors, because again, like, if somebody gets to be known for having stinkers of matches, it's like really hard to, to pass that off, or to say, oh no, they did an all right job there the other night, or whatever else it was, or they brought their A game that night, or whatever it was, or whatnot. So I don't know, but yeah, or you can excuse it by saying, oh yes, but they've had a bunch of matches on the indies. Well, maybe don't do that then. Like, don't have all these indie matches. Maybe have, like, one or two or a big one, good big payday or something else, or just say, hey, well, I'm signed to TNA now. I don't really need to do all of this except, if I really want to do it. So, and if I'm going out there to not, obviously you're not going out there with the intent to stink up the joint, but if you're going out there with the intent to be like, I might be a bit lazy tonight, well, if you're a bit lazy tonight transfer or translates into like a 3.5 star match, I still think that that's fine. Like if your laziness translates into like a 2.5 star match or something less than that, then I think you need to look at yourself and say, yeah, well, maybe I need to put in a little more effort than that or whatever. But yeah, it is tough to sort of gauge, sometimes, is this good enough, or will this be good enough, or will this entertain people sufficiently to sort of, get there or whatever. That's the idea. Like at the end of the day. So yeah, but anyway, guys, yeah, those are the main reasons why I think like having a bad match on a pay-per-view is a lot worse, because again, like people have got to pay for it, just in general, even if it's like the more minor pay-per-views, whether that's, in the arena or via the pay-per-view outlet or whatever you're getting your pay-per-view through. Whether that's the reputation of the pay-per-view, whether that's the reputation of the wrestler or what have you, or the reputation of even the company at large, or even the event or whatever, and that sort of thing, or the arena even, like, some arenas you might start thinking, oh man, that arena, it's held some stinkers, and whatnot, so, or that town, they've had a whole bunch of stinkers over there, but yeah. No, guys. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this one. I hope you join me again in another one.